if you own a 2014 to 18 Silverado or Sierra and you're rocking that 5.3 motor and you're looking for an exhaust upgrade, then you should be checking out the Borla Touring, a dual exhaust system in the split rear exit configuration, featuring these really badass black chrome tips for a couple of reasons. One of those reasons obviously is sound and volume. This system will cater to the guys and gals out there who want a decent bump in volume without any noise or drone inside the cab whatsoever. This thing is dead quiet when you're driving around, and then when you mash on the pedal, it really wakes up the sound of that LS engine, and it really makes it sound deep and throaty all throughout the RPM band. But again, you're not getting any resonance or drone inside the cab. It's super quiet. It's actually one of the quietest exhaust systems I've heard when I'm sitting inside the truck compared to sitting outside and actually hearing this thing rolling down the street. It still sounds pretty awesome. As far as actual volume goes, I'm going to give this a healthy 3 out of 5 on my loudness meter. Borla makes a bunch of systems that are very similar, and the Touring system is their most mild. If you wanted a little bit more volume, then you should be checking out the S-Type system, which is a good middle of the road. And then if you wanted to go all out, then their ATAC system is going to be the loudest possible system. So again, this caters to the guys and gals who daily drive their trucks, want some volume, but nothing too crazy. And Borla is probably one of the biggest names in the industry when it comes to overall fit and finish. They're actually confident enough that they even welded the tips onto the tailpipes themselves. You're pretty much guaranteed a perfect fit, which is a pretty big deal if you're doing this at home with hand tools and you don't have power tools or a lift like we do. As far as the install goes, very simple. It's a bolt-on job because this is pre-measured for the cabin bed length, another bonus compared to other less expensive systems. So for that reason, I'm going to give the install pretty modest 2 out of 3 wrenches on my difficulty meter. You should be able to get this installed in about 2 to 3 hours, and I'm actually going to walk you guys through the entire process in just a minute. Now, as far as build quality is concerned, going back to that real quick again, I definitely consider this to be one of the best systems you can buy, and that's because it's made out of polished 304 stainless from end to end. 304 stainless is an upgrade over the factory grade 409 stainless, which I'll show you guys a comparison in a little bit, but it's safe to say that as far as steel is concerned, this is the best stuff you can currently get on the market. So yes, while it does come in over the $1,000 price point, you are definitely getting what you pay for. And again, those black chrome tips are pretty badass. They're very unique, not something I see very often. So again, if you want one of the most well-built exhaust systems for your Silverado or Sierra, you want a really cool classic look with the split rear exit configuration, and you want a system that's going to sound great outside, but one that's going to allow you to have conversations inside the cab, then the Touring system is the ticket. And again, if you pull the trigger on this one, come back in a little bit. I'll show you guys what tools you need to get the job done, and then I'll walk you through that install step by step. All right, to install your new exhaust system at a minimum, you'll need a standard drive ratchet with 13 and 15 millimeter deep sockets, or 13 and 15 millimeter wrenches, and you'll also need a bolt, nut, and 2 flat washers for your driver's side exhaust hanger. I personally recommend an M10 bolt and nut. Now, optional but helpful tools include an exhaust hanger puller tool and some spray lubricant. All right, so we have to remove our factory exhaust, and there are 2 ways to go about it. Obviously, the instructions mention cutting this thing into pieces, but I'm a fan of retaining my factory equipment, so we're going to remove our factory catback as one piece. In order to do that, we're going to be loosening this ball clamp up here just behind the Y pipe in the factory cat itself. You'll need a 13 millimeter socket for this one. All right, so we've loosened that ball clamp, and now technically the catback is disconnected from the truck. Now we got to get it out of all those exhaust hangers. There's a couple of them. There's one directly above me. In front of the muffler here, we're going to be spraying those down with some lubricant. Then you'll need an exhaust hanger puller tool or a pry bar. What we're going to do, we're going to loosen all those exhaust hangers. We're going to work our way back towards the tailpipe. Once we've loosened that last exhaust hanger, the entire exhaust will fall down and we can remove it from the truck. I'll show you guys more detail in a second, but let's tackle all these rubber isolators first. All right, with that first rubber isolator out of the way, we're going to be tackling these next 2 here just behind the muffler. Same process. Go ahead and spray them down with some lubricant, let them soak for a second, and then squeeze those isolators out of those hangers. All right, so we're finally ready to remove the catback itself entirely. You want to be careful when you spray down this last rubber isolator and pull that exhaust hanger because, again, the entire exhaust is going to fall down. What you want to do is take your time, support the over axle pipe when you pop it free, then let the over axle pipe rest on the axle itself. What you're gonna do, you're gonna go up front towards the muffler, you're gonna grab the muffler, push the entire system back towards the bumper, just enough to get that flex fitting over the cross member. I'm talking about the flex fitting where we just loosened that clamp. Once you've got the flex fitting over the cross member, let it dip down, then you can pull the entire exhaust out from underneath the truck. Again, it can be a little bit heavy, take your time, and if you have a friend, definitely grab them to help you out with this. All right, so before we throw our new system on, we're gonna do a quick comparison here because it's a good idea to set your system up before you install it. That way you can confirm you have all the parts and hardware that you need, and that way you can see how everything is supposed to fit together. And a couple cool things to point out, again, this is made out of 304 stainless compared to our factory grade 409 stainless, so this will retain its finish a lot better. It'll stand up to rust, corrosion, and all the elements a lot better as well, so it's safe to say that this system will definitely last the lifetime of your truck. And I personally really love the black chrome tips on here. Those guys will polish up nicely as well, and again, because they're stainless underneath, you don't gotta worry about rusting, and you don't have to worry about the finish on the tips cracking. And a quick thing to point out here, I like how Borla actually welded on the exhaust tips to the tailpipes themselves. It makes for an overall cleaner and more finished look out back. You don't have to see any band clamps hiding out back underneath the bumper. It's just a nicer appearance in my opinion. And something else to point out here, like I mentioned, because this is technically a bolt-on kit, we're reusing all of our hanger locations, so you don't have to worry about cutting any holes in the frame or anything like that. Even though we're going from a single side exit to a split rear exit configuration, the new exhaust hanger for the driver's side does bolt up to existing hardware on the truck, so again, no cutting or drilling required. So in order to get the new Borla system installed, we are going to be starting with the provided extension pipe. We are going to be mating that extension pipe to our factory wide pipe and our factory ball clamp, so you'll need that 13mm socket that we used earlier. All right, so when you throw your new mid pipe in place, obviously you want to spray down that rubber isolator, make it a lot easier to get that hanger in there. And when you go to tighten this down, you want to make sure that the end of the pipe is flush with the truck as far as being horizontal and vertical. That'll square it up nicely for the muffler. That way all of our exhaust hangers line up on the muffler itself. Next, we're going to throw our muffler in place, and before you do that, make sure you got that large 3-inch clamp on the extension pipe. Once you've done that, you're going to put both of the rubber isolators onto the exhaust hangers on the muffler itself, so it's helpful to spray those down again, make it a lot easier. All right, next we can throw on our passenger side tailpipe and exhaust tip assembly. Before you throw this onto the muffler, make sure you have one of those smaller clamps on the outlet. And you also want to make sure you spray down this rubber isolator to make it a lot easier to get that hanger on there. All right, next we're going to throw on our over axle pipe for our driver's side, and again, make sure you got a clamp on that outlet. Okay, so before we install our driver's side tailpipe assembly, we need to install our new exhaust hanger that's in the kit. There is a hole pre-drilled in the frame, like I mentioned a moment ago, just next to the spare tire here. Now, Borla does not provide the actual bolts, washers, and nuts in the kit, and that might be because the hole in the frame may be different sizes depending on what model year you're working with, but we went ahead and we grabbed a 1-inch flat washer with an M10 bolt, a crush washer, and an M10 nut. So again, just take a trip to the hardware store or rummage around in the drawer to find the appropriate bolt and nut. Secure this thing. You want this facing towards the outside of the truck in the same direction as the hanger is on the tailpipe itself. That way, once we get the tailpipe bolted up, it'll be a lot easier to slide that rubber isolator in place. All right, now that hanger is in place, we can throw our tailpipe assembly up there. Again, make sure you got that last clamp on there so you can tighten it down. And again, make sure you spray down that isolator to throw it on both of those hangers. All right, once you got that driver's side tailpipe installed, go ahead and double check all your band clamps and connections and make sure none of your pipes are rubbing anywhere, and that should wrap up the install. And that also wraps up my review of the Borla Touring dual exhaust system in the split rear exit configuration with these very cool black chrome tips. I'm Travis, thanks for watching, and for all things Chevy and GMC, keep it right here at AmericanTrucks.com.